Yeah, hi, Mike Swanson here. I'm still down in the Bahamas with Dave Skarica. We thought we'd do a little bit of a different type of conversation in this video for you, because a lot of investing and trading and making money, it's not just about making money, but it's about having a fun time and a good lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. And last year we had an investment conference in the Bahamas. We had, how many people do you think it was?
I think we had about 60 people.
About 60, and we
probably 70, including some of the presenters and speakers and that sort of thing.
But it wasn't like a regular, investment.
Oh, no, it wasn't
at all. Yeah, we had a little seminar room and that kind of thing, but that was kind of like
secondary.
Instead, we went out to eat several times. Everybody, had an open bar and all this kind of stuff. It was like almost like a party, and just wait for people to get to know each other and have a good time.
And then about 10 of us, we have a friend of mine who runs a mining company. He has a place on a small island just east of Nassau, and we went on this boat and spent the day at his place on the island, and it was probably the funnest time I've ever had at a conference. And not just saying that because it was our conference, and that was kind of the whole concept. Like, we called it the Bahamas Investment Conference, but remember the first website I bought for it was Investment Vacations, because that was the concept, that you would get a vacation in an investment seminar. So we're probably going to do that again in the spring, early spring of 2011, because we want to bring everyone down here, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And because of my new travel schedule, I'm going to be spending a lot more time, say, looking at business opportunities and mining properties, and I'm not going to be doing as many as the trade shows anymore in Canada and the States, so I won't be speaking at a lot of them. So actually, one of the only ways you'll be able to see Mike and I, probably on a personal basis, is at this conference next year.
But you're starting to put together something new about international investing and international traveling and offshore stuff. That sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, I had this idea because I'm a big living in the Bahamas. Obviously, I'm an expat living offshore, and I'm a big fan of. And he was also here before he passed away. Is John Templeton. And Templeton kind of got his claim to fame in being one of the first great international investors. Like he was buying Japan in the 60s and all that sort of thing. But I wanted to take this one step further. So part of the thing I wanted to do, because I do think there's a lot of problems in Europe and the United States, so the main opportunities are going to be outside of the West in the coming years. So I wanted to set up a service that deals with that. And then I also wanted to maybe do a little bit of alternative lifestyles, because I think that when you live down here, you meet other expats who moved offshore, and they tend to be like very unique people, like maybe different than the average people you meet when I was living in Toronto or whatever. So I wanted to. So part of the website's focus is going to be that not just like, oh, we're going to buy a bank in Chile. It's going to be no. This is what I'm just finishing the first issue right now. And the second issue is going to be about the first expat place is going to be the Bahamas, because I live here and I know it really well. So also, if you're the type of person who's interested in maybe retiring to another country or moving to another country because of whatever tax situation or just lifestyle situation, we're going to kind of give you some opportunities and ideas. And I have guys in Hong Kong and Monaco and other kind of, I guess you would call tax haven type places that will explore what it's like there. So we're going to have about 12 monthly issues a year, and about 3 or 4 of those issues are just going to be dedicated to that. They're not going to be all go by, automobile company in China. They're going to be, no, this is what this country's like, and I guess what we're talking about here, we'll get into right now, is a little bit of what it's like living down here in the Bahamas.
Well, you've lived here, what, 4 or 5 years?
4.5 years.
4.5 years? How did your life, I'll put it this way, I guess, how did your quality of life change when you moved down here?
I think there a lot of positive things happen. Like when my father comes and visits me, he tells me that he has less problems with his prostate and stuff like that. He doesn't go as much, and he thinks it's because he's kind of more laid back and relaxed. And my dad has a high stress job; he's a crown attorney as well. So it's part of the problem. Probably he wouldn't like me giving all that information out over the internet, but so I think you have that aspect to it. We're a little more laid back. Like, for example, I think it's great that way, by the way, because you do get a little more laid back and you don't take things as seriously. Like Mike and I were on a conference call this morning with some high rollers and big time guys in the stock market, And I brought my laptop out here. I plugged in my little speaker set. We were listening to the call out here, and I told them right away, look it, Mike and I are out here on my deck in the Bahamas drinking beers on this conference call, right? And they all laughed, because they're in some office somewhere, right?
Stuck in a cubicle or whatever.
Yeah, stuck in a cubicle or whatever. So I think you get that aspect of it where you have like kind of the eye on life, and it's like there's a negative side of that because sometimes it takes a long time for things to get done, and it's tough for things to get done. But the positive side of it is your standard of living becomes higher, because you can do things that you don't really need money for. Like this is a nice community I live in, but like if we want to, we can go down, we can walk down 5 minutes and go take a swim. Mm-hmm. We can walk across the road to the ocean. I've got 5 restaurants right in this little area within a 10-minute walk. It's not like the United States where you have to drive everywhere, which drives me nuts personally to get to a place.
And these are good restaurants, not like you're going to McDonald's.
Yeah, exactly. Like these are like okay, you need a little money for these restaurants. These aren't like but no, it's like little lifestyle things. Like the airport, for example, is a 10-minute drive from me. So what I do is I check in really early, throw my bags in, and then I come home and just hang out at home or go to a restaurant, and then I just check in like a half an hour before my flight. I don't have to wait around in the terminal because I'm so close and there's no traffic. So there's little things like that which I think kind of make you, instead of spending an hour on the 401, that's a big highway in Toronto, driving to the airport, I'm doing that, down here. So I think there's little things like that which really help your standard of living. And sometimes, like in the middle of the afternoon, the markets are slow. Obviously not like the week we just saw, but if the markets are slow, I'll go out and kayak in the ocean or play tennis for a couple hours, and then I'll work in the evening. So I think you have little things like that which really, really help your standard of living going forward, and make you a little more laid back and make you, not as in the rat race and stressed out. Now, you live in a small town, so you kind of can relate to that. And then me, too, I like being away from Bay Street and House Street. I got guys that still buy their deals, but I don't have to be pitched all the time. I don't have to be a part of that. And, by the way, Templeton said that when he was down here. He could be a real contrarian then because he wasn't being influenced by, no, you're wrong. The market's not going to go down. This is going on, and so I think that happens as well. Overall, I think it's really, it's smaller down here, so it's a little slower. But overall, I really like where my life has gone since I moved down here.
Well, as far as me coming down here and visiting, it's really neat because, there's 2 things about it. One, it doesn't take long to get down here from the United States.
Yeah.
Like, I think about it, the past 8 months, I drove to Atlanta, and that took 6 hours. I drove one time to Atlantic City, that took me 8 hours. And then I went to Myrtle Beach, and that was like a 4 or 5 hour drive. And it took me 4 hours to come down here, to drive to the airport. Yeah. Come down here. I mean, that's not very long at all.
Well, and I think that's why one reason I chose this place. Like you're talking about, what I'm going to write about these things.
I know to get to Toronto, what is it, 6 hours?
No, 3 hours. Direct.
Direct flight?
Yeah, you're going through Charlotte.
Yeah, I made a connection.
Yeah, you made a connection. So, no, you can get 3 hours direct, basically to the Toronto and New York. There's that direct flight to Charlotte. That's about 2.5 direct. And, there's a million flights to Miami and Lauderdale. There's a flight to Atlanta. There's a flight to Philadelphia direct. And then, most any flight goes through Miami if you want to do that. Obviously, I'm Canadian, so I can go to places like Cuba direct. We have a direct flight to Cayman Islands. So, Nassau's a nice little hub that way. And they're actually building a new terminal, so I think there'll be even more direct flights to, say, little other Caribbean countries or whatever countries outside of, Nassau. Or, countries outside of the U.S. So that's part of the advantage of in the Bahamas. Just that's what we're getting to right now, is that if you're looking for a place to live that's kind of exotic but not too exotic, here we're close to the States. Mike sees my cable package. You have ESPN, HBO, and all those channels. So we're close to the States. It's very westernized. People are English speaking, and and it's easy to get to places from here. For example, living here, a lot of my friends in Vancouver want me to come out there, but I tell them, look, it's 12 hours to get to Vancouver with a connection through Toronto. I can get to London in 9 hours direct. So it does change maybe some of the places you're going to travel to, but this is a nice location because of that. You're pretty close to South America, you're pretty close to Europe, because you get this direct flight to London. You're very close to anywhere on the East Coast in the States, and there's a lot of direct flights to these places. So as an expat, these are the kind of things I'll be talking about in this report. That there's a lot of advantages to being in the Bahamas because you are close to a lot of these places. And then, of course, you have, as a Canadian, I can get out of paying taxes so that you have the tax advantage down here, you know.
Well, I assume you're going to explain that in there too, right?
Yeah, I'm going to explain. That's going to be all part of it because people.
Sure.
That's one of the main things people ask me, is you know like the tax benefits and that sort of thing. We'll talk about that. I talk about how some of the things, the day-to-day living costs, are more expensive. For example, rum and Coke is not one of them, but but like groceries and all of that sort of thing is more expensive because everything's imported and there's duties on them. And so there's some negatives that way, but then there's positives because, if you're making good money and you don't pay income tax, you don't care. You'll pay, $6 for a thing of Tostitos instead of $4. That's not going to bother you that much, right? So, those are kind of the advantages of being down here, especially if you're, I would say, upper middle and higher. I think the no tax situation always ends up benefiting you, as opposed to, say, higher costs.
Well, the other thing for me, I notice coming down here is just visiting, is, when you go on vacations in the United States most of the time, most of the places people go to, like Las Vegas or Disney World, or like I said,
it's artificial environment.
Yeah, everything has this artificial environment.
Well, Atlantis has that.
Atlantis has that here too, but that's about it. And that was one of the neat things about visiting you down here, is because you live here. It makes it so I don't feel like a tourist. We go out, we went out to dinner the other night, other people that live here, and so forth. And the conference we did last year was like that too. It's not like it's 30 people going to a casino or going to Disney World. We're going to real places, and everyone is real nice and laid back there.
Like, for example, there's a little resort right down the road from me here, and I talk about these 5 restaurants, and you see tourists here, but also these restaurants are very frequented by locals, right? Like the little cafe we often do the videos from, Milano, that place is almost exclusively European expats who go to that little cafe, because the guy's from northern Italy who owns it. So, you get a lot of that down here, and I go to those kind of places. So if you hang out with me, you're not just going to get the tourist kind of thing. You're going to get maybe a more balanced look at the island and how you live kind of day to day, and so that's kind of advantage, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about in this publication. And because I do know other people, what I'll probably do is, for some of these other things, I'll probably do a lot in the Caribbean because I live close to it, or Central and South America, and I can just visit a country where, for example, my dad's wife and a good friend of his is from Honduras, so I can go to Honduras and tell you what it'd be like to live as an expat there. Or I know some people in Panama, I go there. I'm going back to Chile and go there, and so we'll be able to kind of tell you with a hands-on experience with locals, and then we'll talk about expats there and their kind of experience. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like when I talk about the Bahamas, 80% of it I love down here, but I'm going to talk about some of the problems, it's a bit of a crime problem, and like I said, they have kind of the island time, and some people have the island worth ethic, so it takes a little longer for things to get done. So we'll talk about people in that. And one thing I mentioned to you is that the electric company and the telephone company here are basically both crown corporations run by the government, so they're disasters. You kind of have to roll with the punches with them, but the positives more than outweigh the negatives down here.
Well, does that affect you, the power company or something?
Well, it can, because you can just get a blackout sometimes and it look like this outside, and some of the phone service I get down here is it's a joke. Sorry, no offense to the guys who work at BTC, but it is a joke. My phone right now has a problem where if I pick it up, it sounds like I hear fax machines and busy signals and all kinds of stuff going on. It's you do have that kind of element to it. But again, but then on the other hand, cable Bahamas is fantastic. My internet, you've been on here. My internet here is faster than it was in Canada. So it's and I use all my phones over cable Bahamas. I use Skype and stuff. So so then that kind of makes up for it. So like I said, that's why the positives outweigh the negatives. And again, maybe it's inefficient. You pay a little more for those things, but again, when you pay no income tax, you don't kind of tend to sweat that. Whatever, the power goes off here, let's run to the beach and jump in for an hour,
Yeah, I don't think you're sweating.
Most
of the time anyway.
It's not like
you need the heat on.
So Yeah, so no, like I said, like we'll talk about these things. I've mentioned a lot of the things I'm going to talk about in there, and again, I'll give you a different perspective. It's not just going to be, the financial industry in the Bahamas is fantastic, great place to. No, I'm going to tell you what it's like to, where the traffic is, when rush hour is, the problem with maybe getting fresh fruits and things like that because everything's imported. So we're going to talk about like the day to day, and I think it'll be really unique that way, and probably that add-on service will be worth the price. Just I think for the entertaining reading, forget about the stock market kind of stuff. And I guess what we should mention as we're finishing off here is this offer we're doing for this first time we're selling it quarterly. And I told Mike the last time we did it monthly, I also have a technical service called Stock Chart of the Day. We gave that and this service away for the price of one, right? And my regular service.
Yeah, the regular service too.
And so for the people who are doing it quarterly, I don't want to kind of cheat them. So we're going to let you get on this offer only, do the same thing, and we're probably not going to give an offer like this again until next year. Yeah, so like you say that this quarterly offer in a few months or something, if we do these offers a couple times a year, we're not going to give that 3-to-1 after this.
Now's the time for you to sign up.
Yeah, find out what it's like to live in the Bahamas.
And get the stock picks that'll get you down here too.
That's right. That's more importantly, yeah. And then find out how not to pay any tax on those gains on those picks.
You got it made then.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll be talking to you later on.
Take care.